Yes.
started, so,
I hopped on.
great, thank you. So I started the event, I'm just gonna go down and grab that.
Okay, I'm gonna run to the ladies room quick, 'cause
Are
I,
you muted?
No.
Just make sure.
no, I should. Oh, sorry.
Rebecca, can you hear me?
I can.
Perfect. Wonderful. Everybody decided to join virtually, so we moved to our desks and yeah.
That's good. I think we're gonna have then, if folks are driving, they'll probably be running a little bit late. That's
I
okay.
just wanted to make sure that we're running smoothly.
We're
Yeah.
running. Who do we have here?
It's just me and Karen right now, and then we have two attendees that are just watching virtually.
All right, great. All right, you all keep working and I will keep working until we get a quorum.
I believe the CPRO folks are on their way as well virtually, so
Sounds good. When everybody starts popping in, I will come back on video.
great. Tong and Scheherazade, can I just have you test your mics and can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. Just trying to really make sure that everyone's stuff is working.
Hi, did we start yet or am I okay?
We have not started yet. We're just waiting for a quorum. Chloe, is a quorum 3 of us? You're on mute if you're answering me. Or
think-
she might have, go
I
ahead.
think she stepped away. Sorry. I think she
Yeah.
stepped away from her desk for a minute.
All right. I'm assuming a quorum is 3 of us. So Cynthia, you
Yes.
are good.
Yes. It should be because it's such a small committee.
Yeah. Okay, I think it was Shannon. We've got the quorum. Shannon.
Sorry. I was
That's good. No. You're okay.
racing.
You're okay. I know everybody's racing to get to like like not in the room. Let's go somewhere else. So if we I'm gonna let me see. So we're gonna get started because I'm really conscious about time and folks have got things to do. We are already live, and so that is helpful. I wanted to clarify and share with you and get your feedback on a draft kind of purpose statement and goal and some thought exchange questions. We also want to take time for CPRL to present and for us to discuss some of their findings, just like the initial findings that they have around kind of what we had done as a council, what's happening across the country. So we're not starting from scratch. And then we will kind of review some next steps as we wrap up. I'll keep track of time so we can like flow and have enough time to at the end to say, all right, well, what's happening next after this? And that was my plan for this original meeting. Does that work for you, Cynthia, and for you, Shannon? Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Oh, there's Jen there. Perfect.
One other
Yes.
kind of aspect or dimension I keep thinking about is just sort of the urgency piece. Like I feel like we're going through this in a very kind of check box sort of way and in very sequential as opposed to holistic and comprehensive. So that piece is clear. But then also how how much more time do we take to start getting the show on the road? And it made me a little nervous. Like the last comment today was like starting to like pull back a little bit again. And I just feel like we can't, I mean, seeing what is happening right now in schools.
Yep.
Firsthand, like it is not working. And I think there's not enough of that voice in the room in general. And I don't know how to kind of bring that to the fore.
Yep, that was some of the impetus for me to say, hey, we need to like get rolling on the larger vision piece because right now we're into all of the details like we're messing around with details towards an outdated vision. And so we're going the up. We need to like flip this around a little bit. Or right now we're like kind of doing a little bit of a both and like tinkering with some of the details while also talking about the vision. So I'm gonna put this in the chat. This was the original, or here was the kind of the draft vision purpose statement that I have. And here was a draft of just a time-bound goal when I think about the urgency, Shannon, that you are naming. I would love for us to just take a moment, look at these, and if there's any questions or kind of feedback um, initially, and then we're going to come back around at the end after we hear from CPRL. But I just want to initially your thoughts on these two: purpose statement of this ad hoc and a time-bound goal for our work together. Shannon, do you think that and I think the question is like there's a okay, well then how do we get there? But first, does that timeline seem urgent enough or meet the sense of urgency needed?
Yeah, I want to be realistic too and recognize like just meeting and getting together is challenging in and of itself. I guess I want to make sure that it's not just to the, I don't know that the state board is the only audience for what we're trying, like it's almost like, did the legislation get it right? To like, I think some of the legislation in and of itself got the right things done and then also maybe didn't do some other things. And like, so do we also need to think, and we didn't even get a bill through this session. So like, what's the next iteration of that going to be too? So I wonder if this group is the group that kind of pulls up a little and looks at the whole package that's in 2441 and says, is it all like, is it complete? Or is there some aspect of it that like even today someone said it doesn't address administrators at all? Like, did that get missed? Should that get reintroduced? So I'm just wondering if the audience is bigger than the state board, but
Yeah, I think the audience it is bigger, but we've got to
go through them for now.
go
maybe.
through them to go any bigger for now because of the legislation not passed. But yeah, I do think there's a bigger audience. I'm going to make a note on my note page. Jen, I saw a hand, but there might be some technical stuff. All right, well, just chime in when you get it, when you can. Cynthia, questions, initial reactions, initial thoughts, knowing we're going to come back to this after the CPRL presentation.
Hang on, I'm on my phone here too, so I'm just trying to manage a couple different things. I have, just so you know, you're gonna laugh, but trying to push all these buttons, I have this being like transcribed in a different language. So I'll figure out that button and get off. But in the meantime, as long as you can see me and hear me, I mean, I think what you put in the text is what you said you were aiming to do, which is to, kind of dream big and just collaborate around ideas. I share the need for process, but also the sense of urgency. So I thought today was a good meeting that we were able to actually highlight not only exit out of college, but my mind is it's almost like I want a visual of here are the different paths because it's not all in one place. And my question today that I posed at the meeting was about an administrator, not a teacher. So I should have clarified that from out of state. But I'm envisioning like if we had to dream big with no regs, let's say, and build bottom up, how would we create the pathways? I think out of the college profession, we have a pretty good handle on it, and I think we will end up with a waiver process, so that's great. But I'm also thinking of these mid-year career adults, like how do we support them? And I'm also even thinking of retirees because there's a lot of good talent there, and regs are still keeping them back, and that is not good for children either. And the sense of urgency is really, I have more people directly in front of children right now that don't have any college classes and no certification, and that's the sense of urgency compared to the pipelines that we're working on. So I'm so excited about the work, and subcommittees are where we can brainstorm, but obviously the whole board has to weigh in. But I think we can make some really good progress. And I love the tiers of front entry into the profession, mid-year career change, let us help you, and even retirees. So I would propose that as well.
I love that. I love that if we dream big with no regulations, what would our dream be? Like without like taking away everything that's in regs now. I think that's a great way to envision it. We are going to move into the conversation with CPRL, and what we would love. I told them originally, I was like, I want just like a one pager, but they were like, okay, give us a moment. Like, this is a short amount of time. So I would love the team to just kind of share out like what do you have in the works?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, so we're gonna share out what we have in the works. Obviously, this is like a teaser, I guess, and you'll tell us what else you need from us and want from us. And so let's just tell you what we're up to, and we can kind of go from there. So really, what we're going to do today is propose a framework for engaging in the work of this committee that's grounded in research. Both research that we've done directly and research we've reviewed, and that's also grounded in part on the work that the CECC did, which, as you all know, because I think most of you were on it, is the body that predated the CERT board. So really, we're just like scratching the surface today and proposing a way of thinking about how you might enter into the work, and then obviously we'll come back with more information depending on the direction that you want to take this ad hoc committee. So we can kind of click through the next few slides quickly, Tong. These are just the purpose and the goal that Rebecca, you just articulated. But if we jump ahead to the proposed analytical framework, this is like one way you can think about approaching the work of this committee. It's not the only one, but we think it's like a sound one, and one that's like shared by other entities that have engaged in similar inquiries. In terms of some of the key questions, the approach that we're proposing is like it. I think it's helpful because you're biting off a lot here, and it's very exciting work that you're going to be engaged in. But there's got to be a way to approach it that doesn't let it get too complex and messy too quickly. And so this is basically kind of like a first principles kind of problem solving approach that begins with considering what the future ideal state of the education profession should be, and then from that working backwards to think about what needs to change from the current state in terms of educator preparation and certification to achieve that desired result. And we can organize it ultimately by pathways into the profession. But I think common to all is the starting point of like what is the future ideal state. So as you're considering that, just going ahead to the next section on potential resources, one of the things we wanted to just leave you with is that you don't have to start from scratch in engaging in this inquiry. And there are a few different bodies of knowledge that are potential resources that you could use. One is knowledge generated by the CECC, and we'll share a slide from way back that might remind you of some of the work that the CECC did on these questions. There's work that we've been doing previously, existing research. We have research we're engaged in right now. We could also do more in the future, obviously, depending on your needs. And then there's knowledge generated by the field. So there's been national research conducted on these questions, for example, by the National Academy of Education and the Learning Policy Institute. And we'll share a little bit about both of those, but we can definitely go much deeper in future ad hoc committee meetings. The thing that's interesting about just clicking ahead about the sources and the good news is that the findings tend to kind of converge around similar ideas and solutions. So just by way of example, there tends to be a lot of agreement that the education profession should be one where educators are increasingly facilitators of deep learning and whole child development, that educating is a collaborative practice where teachers work together and support each other, and that there should be varied leadership opportunities, not just pathways to administrative roles, but within teaching, varied leadership opportunities that are available for career progression. And then in terms, jump in.
So sorry to interrupt. I've been texting with Jen Rodriguez. She's having trouble and she's asking if I can announce to the group for someone to resend her the link. She hasn't been able to get in touch with Chloe. And it says the controls were turned off for her to be able to comment. I don't know if anyone else knows how to navigate Team, if anyone can see if a control is off, if we could fix the problem ourselves or if we need Chloe. But thank you for interrupting. I'm sorry. I just wanted
No problem. We can pause for a second and see if we can.
If we could try to see if any
resolve.
Yeah, let's pause.
Thank you. Pause for a moment and maybe look at the buttons. I certainly hope I didn't do it by mistake, but I'm gonna mute myself, and I think everyone can access Teams to see if anything setting is strange. But I also suggest that you shut off her laptop and restart. Sometimes when you change the internets.
Oh, she's coming.
I think I just fixed it.
Okay. Thank you, team. Thank you.
Are we good? Yay!
Scheherazade just fix it for you.
I don't know how I did that. I'm like the last person in the room who can fix these things, but somehow it worked out this time. Okay. Jen, I don't know what you heard last. Do you want me to repeat anything?
You're on. Oh, now you don't have a mute.
She can't turn off the mute.
Okay, hold on. Disable.
No.
Disable. No, how do you enable the mic?
Jen, can you hear me? Okay. Are you joining from the app or the browser? Because sometimes I've had this problem in the cert board meetings, and when I downloaded the app and joined from the app, I was okay. But when I do it from the browser, I'm like disabled. I can't get. So I don't know if that.
Oh, she's gonna try again.
Okay, maybe she's gonna try again.
Oh,
yeah.
Teams is very fickle.
Teams is very challenging, and something about joining on the browser is like not okay.
Because they want you to download. They want downloading.
Yeah. Those all the times that I couldn't speak, it was because I was trying to join from the browser. But I know that Tong had a similar problem from the app, so I don't know if that's really the solution.
So while we're waiting, the examples. So I was talking to the CERT team right before we started about a specific case of a person right this second who did not pass the math part of the elementary praxis, is not within one standard error of measure, so doesn't qualify for the bridge, already did a DSAP for 3 years in an elementary school and was very well received by the school district. And he wants to come into the profession and he can. So he came and worked for us for a year. And then we had to let him go because the funding ran out for his position. So today was his last day. And I was like, I can't believe, and he's bilingual. He's a man of color. He's so delightful. He's already had 3 years of experience in Hartford Public Schools and wants to go back to Hartford Public Schools. And he is the person that
he's the waiver. That's group 3.
Right.
He is group 3.
He is group 3. And he doesn't have a degree in math. Well, I don't know what is the required degree for elementary ed. I'm assuming it's more broad, like you could have a variety.
No, you have to have all of these specific credit counts in certain areas, but they're credit counts that are not based on today's college student.
Okay.
So
and
you could be missing credits.
Nothing he did in his bachelor's degree really it's all the lived experience that he's had, since then. This poor guy, so now he's trying to come through TESOL and do a TESOL endorsement for initial cert, but he has to go back to an ed prep program, start all over again, and then hopefully get a DSAP in the meantime. He'd be better served going coming out from another state. He'd have an easier way to teach in Connecticut if he had taught outside of Connecticut. he should pretend to be coming in from Massachusetts.
That is just so sad. That's so sad. Our system, we are keeping like Connecticut educators or aspiring Connecticut educators. Like we'll take you from another state easier than we'll take our
Well,
own.
and
Like,
you'll like this, Rebecca. Guess who he lives next door to?
oh no, who?
Diana Wenzel.
Ah,
So he like goes up to her yard every day and is like, I want to teach. Why are you keeping me back from teaching?
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
gosh. And she's probably like, we shouldn't be.
So
Oh,
I'm
man.
just thinking every time we're having these conversations, like the whole conversation today, I was like, he is the person we're talking about. And it's not probably a lot of people in that exact
There's not.
situation.
It's actually
but
a very
enough.
small number, but it's enough that we should have a very simple process to like make it happen.
Yep.
Okay. Should we
Let's
admit
see.
her? Yes.
We'll see.
Like,
See if she
we're
can.
gonna. Okay, we're admitting. Hopefully this works. I'm crossing my fingers.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
It's so hard, the teams. Okay. I don't
So
know what
go
you
back-
heard, Jen.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, Rebecca, can you reshare in the chat so I can look at those two documents? And I heard the beginning part of what you had said. I can always go back to the video and revisit it later. So just keep going because I don't want to hold the group up.
Okay. All right. Cool. And we can always go back and answer questions. So I was just starting to Jen say, hey, Liz is here too. I was just starting to just note that like amongst these different sources of information, research, there's convergence, and there's convergence both in terms of sort of like the vision for the education profession of the future. And then also I was about to start saying in terms of educator preparation and certification, how it needs to change. And so here we just note a few of these things. So one, and this is going to sound very familiar to you guys, I'm sure, but there should be an emphasis on future aligned knowledge, skills, and disposition. So an understanding of learners and learning, use of AI, adaptive expertise, empathy is a very important skill for educators, more practice-based learning experiences, and then something we've talked about a lot in the CERT board, which is a system of quality monitoring and improvement that reflects the evolving evidence base. So a system that's not so kind of rigid and stuck in time. On the next slide, we're just bringing back a slide that will maybe be familiar to you from the CECC. And really the point here is just that these questions have also been addressed by the CECC. So this is what that body came up with. They talked about the qualities of a future educator and also how to develop those qualities. And this is like, again, you'll see that there's some convergence with the other sources that we just talked about. In terms of kind of clicking ahead, Tom, thank you. There's just one thing to note that I'm sure all of you are familiar with is that there's some really big sets of work before the certification board coming up that are obviously very connected to the questions before this ad hoc committee. So everything from CAPE accreditation to, and this is the big one, EPP, new and continuing program approval, and educator workforce data monitoring and quality improvement. These are all mechanisms through which you can kind of move towards the future educator. I appreciate what you're saying about not wanting to just like tick through checkboxes, but there is like a big body of work coming up that does really kind of get at like the sort of vision. And so just wanted to note that and sort of just emphasize that you'll need to figure out how to make sure you're kind of, the work of this committee is aligned with some of those matters before the larger CERT board. Okay, so that was just like a really quick teaser. Obviously we can bring much more information to you. We wanted to just pause here and just like get your reaction, see what you think about the kind of way of approaching the work, what other sources or information would be helpful for you, how we can assist you, generally speaking, with the work you have ahead of you and any questions that you have.
This is super helpful. And for me, I know I am looking for a one pager on the various pathways, something really simple. And I know we worked on it on the council, but I want to kind of start from there and see how that evolves. That would be helpful. What about the rest of you?
Will we be able to get this document? I don't know if it's already in our email, if not, could you email it to us so that we could see it? Is that a yes or no?
Yes, but I think should that needs to come from Jen. I don't know. Should that come from you all?
So
Yeah,
what we can do afterwards, after the meeting, is we can pull your document and the two that Rebecca shared, and we can share it out to the group.
Okay, that would be great. I like how you brought up a lot. I mean, I feel like today's conversation just keeps going broader and broader, as maybe it should. But really what you're talking about is the future of careers, right? The future of education, the future of the classroom teacher. And then how do we align certification to make sure everyone's prepared to help prepare students for their future college and careers, which is so big, but also so exciting. But I do think we need to think about that. A year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, teachers are going to have to understand AI and how to use it as part of their lessons, right? So you make many good points. Thank you for this.
Shannon, thoughts on the presentation or things that on the questions?
I appreciate that it's kind of going back to a lot of things we've already kind of reviewed. And I thought I thought we did some really great brainstorming work as the CECC, which that rolled up into what, the graphic Jonathan kept kind of returning to. And so I don't want to lose all that good work we already did. And then I think catching up the rest of the standards board who wasn't part of the CECC is important to bring everybody along. And then I think even that video, I don't know if everybody remembers the video that Jonathan showed about the changing nature of the world of work, which, is where we live, and the things that students and graduates need to know and be able to do is like changing by the minute. And I don't feel like there's a consistent and I know everybody's at different places with it, but I thought he did a really nice job of getting that point across and getting everybody feeling like, oh, wow, we do really have to think very differently right now. So maybe showing that video would be helpful. And then getting back to the fundamentals so that we can think boldly and differently and be a state that others want to model, because I don't think anyone's nobody's really figuring this out. And there was an article 2 weeks ago about the bloodbath that is coming for the white collar workforce. Like, it's going to be eviscerated by AI, and we're not prepared. And it's becoming like a national defense issue for all countries. But I think we need to, I don't want to be like too doomsday about it, but I was just at a lecture this past Saturday about how transformative AI is going to be in the next 2 years, and we are not on top of it. So I want to be excited and strategically optimistic about what we could do with all of this. Yeah.
Jen.
I think the work that we did in the council will be really helpful to getting this work started. And I also think that it's going to help guide the work of the rest of the board, including the statutory obligations that we have to continue to get done. I know it's kind of ticking off boxes in relation to that, but I feel like if we don't get those things done by their deadlines, we also, face a different avenue, which is, I also really think it's important for this vision board to help in that work and guide that work based on kind of the outcomes or vision that we create. to guide looking through the regs, updating the regs, and reimagining what those regs and statutes can look like as we move forward.
Jen, yeah, I have a question. So to me, this particular ad hoc group is outside of the regs. So like this work is like, if the regs weren't there, like what would we put together? And then the rest of the kind of our meeting spaces are for the actual regs that we're like trying to shift and change in real time because we have some deadlines. Does that resonate, or do you like, I don't think I
It
understand.
absolutely, yes, it absolutely does resonate. But I think that like gleaning information and kind of like where the vision or where we're kind of moving towards as part of this ad hoc will also help. So when you're doing like your updates and you're providing information on like the things that we're reviewing, that can kind of provide a lens for the greater group when we're looking at the regs as well. And to that point, and to Shannon's point, whatever we do in the regs now, it's malleable, it's changeable. So even with like kind of that doomsday thing happening in the future, if we update them to current standards and then we continue to be in a cycle of updating and changing and modifying and modernizing as part of our board, then that work will be ongoing as we continue this work and as education changes. I see it as being very flexible in that work as we move forward.
The word flexibility. I love it. Okay. So in thinking about what other information what would we like if we were to come together in, we'll say 1 month, but we'll talk about like maybe to meet more often if we're able to. The next time we come together, what would we want CPRL to provide us? Or CPRL, I know you've been working on a lot of things. Are there things that you're thinking of that you're like, oh, this might help? We might be able to provide this to you.
Yeah, I think if you go back, Tong, I think we were thinking about providing, based on existing research, our own research, and the historic work of the CECC, answers to, is there one with just the 2 questions on it? Both what everyone's writing about what education of the future needs to be, and then sort of with that, with the view of the role of the educator of the future, what folks are talking about in terms of the prep insert system. So it's sort of like, if this is what we're trying to aim to achieve in terms of who we're training, then what are the approaches to prep insert? And we are planning to do, like I said, basically drawing from 3 sets of sources. 1, everything that's already been published out there on those 2 questions. 2, our own research, which is inclusive of like what other states are doing, but also we've been doing over the past 4 years a bunch of empirical research in your state, so we can speak to the data that we've collected in your state. And then 3rd, there is a bunch, as you all know, in this group, but I don't know if others are joining this committee too. But as you all know, there's a bunch of work that the CECC did on it that it just might be helpful to bring up for others too, so that they know that sort of their foundational policy-making group where they came out on some of these issues. So we can bring answers to those 2 questions using all 3 of those sets of information, if that works for you.
So I'm hearing, if you say it back so I can get it right, I'm hearing you'll be able to present the kind of national, like the latest and greatest national data. You'll be able to present the statewide data on answers to the questions about the educator profession today and the future. And at our next meeting, you'll be able to give a kind of a codified version of here's where the CECC landed at the end, and the recommendations they were putting out for the larger vision, not for all the kind of like detailed ones. Those 3 things at our next meeting. That works for me. How does that feel for you, Cynthia, Jen, and Shannon?
I think that's exciting. I have one other question that may be embedded in it, and I'm curious if you have any research or examples of other professional career people who want to come into education. So for example, your doctor, your lawyer, your dentist, your machinist, what have you, pipelines for career people to come and merge into the school system to share their practices, and what avenues are there for someone like that to not have to go back to school if they're already practicing.
Yep. That sort of attaches both to sort of who the educator is and then ways to come in. And I think, Rebecca, that aligns a little bit with what you were asking about, a one-pager that basically lays out the pathways, so we can bring that. The other thing, Cynthia, that I thought you were going to ask initially is that what do we have about how other professions are tackling this same issue? And that has been a source of some of our current, or that has been a focus of some of our current research, particularly medicine. Various medical training has come up a bunch in terms of how folks are being prepared. Obviously, things, Shannon, like AI, are very much affecting the medical field, but they're also, an example of a very professionalized field where there's a lot of respect paid to the people who practice.
Sounds great. I mean, I'd be interested in both of them. Thank you.
When you say that you're looking at the other professions, are they comparable in because while teaching might be respected, it's not like it's not paid in the same way. So when you think about the medical field, I always get nervous if people are like, when you become a doctor, and I'm like, okay, like now we're dealing with different salary ranges. Are you thinking about professions where training is comparable to where teaching is seen financially within our society now?
Yeah, well, teaching really isn't that highly, teaching isn't technically a profession from this type of analysis, which is why when you're looking to a vision for all the folks who want teaching to be treated as a profession, we often look to the other occupations that are treated as professions in the ways that we want teaching to be treated. I think all of the others are, Rebecca, they're helpful as analogies, I guess is what I would say. There isn't really another one-to-one. But when folks are talking about how they want people to be treated and how they want people to be trained to support that vision, often medicine is like the first thing that folks bring up, not because of the compensation, but because of the intentionally sequenced, job embedded nature of the training and development of expertise, and all of those sorts of things, I guess is what I would say. But if there are other professions you want us to look into, people often compare nursing more to education. I don't know that that's how teachers themselves want to be viewed, but that's another, like in the academic literature, both nursing and teaching are viewed as semi-professions. So there are other sort of semi-professions, but the question becomes, if you're trying to professionalize further, what are the professions you might look to understand this relationship between training and practice?
And I'll just jump in just because, we live in this world of workforce development, and there is a big shift from a degree based hiring practice to a competency skills based hiring practice, even in those professions that have been viewed historically as more professional, and so I think there's a whole overriding that's happening now, like where degrees, like that's where I struggle when we're talking about like the bachelor's degree today earlier, and like it doesn't mean the same thing that it did before. And we don't want to devalue education. We obviously incredibly value it, but there's different things that we're now looking for in terms of skills and abilities that need to, and the learning that you need to do over a lifetime, as opposed to front loading it with a degree, which is what we've structured our system historically as. But it's, now people have to keep upskilling and reskilling and going back to get additional training. So how do we think and I think doctors are different because I think there is that front loading that they're never going to get rid of in that particular profession because of how technical it is. And it is truly a matter of life or death. Like it's just different. But even in nursing right now, they're doing some really creative things that can make people a little nervous too. Like, are we short circuiting some fundamental skills that someone needs to be a capable and safe nurse? But they're starting to build in like clinicals at the high school level so that students are able to go right into the workforce right out of high school and don't have to continue on necessarily into a degree. They can get the on the job skills they need to continue to advance from a CNA to a you know, an RN and an APRN. And so it's just changing really, really quickly. And I would like to think of how we could creatively keep pace on that front with the teaching profession.
Can somebody clarify for me what the research is saying, the difference between a non-professional, semi-professional, and professional? Like what's the research say makes one in each category?
We can definitely bring, I mean, it's if you want to Google it, it's under the sociology of professions, Rebecca. It's a field of sociology. And it has a lot to do with various levels of gatekeeping, training, afforded status, et cetera. There are a whole bunch of things around it. And so, yeah, it's just, I'm not saying it's what you have to use as like your, but I'm just saying the status question that you raised, it's like that sort of fits in with that body of literature.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to lift that up in this space because when you will hear a lot about what does it mean to professionalize the profession, the teaching, like what does that mean? And it puts into question, I would go back to the philosophical understanding of what does it mean to professionalize something? And is that the task of this? Are we looking at how to enter into the workforce in a really awesome job? So thank you. Other questions or things that folks would want CPRL to bring forward for the next time we come together?
What's the list of things right now? Because I think you were.
Yep, the list of things right now is they're going to present the national data, statewide data, and the CECC data or on pathways to entering into the profession. What else do you have on your list? I think that's it right now, Liz, but was there anything else I'm missing?
I think making sure that included some sort of summary of the current state. You had asked Rebecca like a one-pager around the current, the way I understand that is sort of like a simplified, I think we had this in the CECC at one point, but like a simplified version of understanding the current pathways into the profession as the law stands now.
Yes.
And specifically just I mean, it keeps coming up, but like it is a different standard for out of state people than in state. And how do we level that playing field? Just make that make sense. Because and what the Department of Ed's able to rattle off so easily is just not clear, I don't think, to everybody. So they rush through it and are like, it's different. Well, like, how is it different and why is it different? And wouldn't we just make it the same for in-state as out-of-state? I just don't understand.
Yeah, so there's the one pager for in-state, and there's maybe a one pager for out-of-state, and that one pager, I believe, and Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, that should include not only into the teaching profession, but into the administrative like pathways, like the pathways throughout.
Leaders, right, exactly. Pathways throughout the certifications. And yeah, like I said, as we started this meeting, I'd love to look at mid-career change entry plans as well as retiree re-entry plans.
So that is, Liz, it's an entry, mid-career, and like maybe
Yeah.
re-entry for retirement. Like what are those pathways in a very simple way, visually pleasing way?
Yeah. But we have been talking about teachers, though I thought I just heard administrators too.
That's the
Yeah,
mid-career.
Well, but under
But
what
it's both.
licensure?
It's
but like I'll give an example. The one I was speaking to, the situation I was speaking to about at the board meeting was an administrator who got certificate in another state, and teaching certificate in another state, admin certificate in another state, 3 degrees, but couldn't just come to Connecticut and figure out how to get certified here to be able to work in the admin role.
Yep. So the admin stuff, I mean, I know that you said we have to think about timeline, but the admin stuff, the CECC did not tackle. That's like a whole separate body of law. The CECC did not tackle that, and that has not been our focus. So just from a time perspective, just being realistic, we're going to be at a much earlier stage in unpacking all of that than the role of everything that fits under educator licensure, teacher licensure. So we need to, I probably have to circle up with the team to figure out like what the right time horizon is if we were going to bring back, research on administrators. It's the work of
Okay.
the board. So the work of the board so far hasn't really touched that, nor has our work.
No, but can I add a little bit more? And I brought this up in a board meeting, I don't know, a while back. But it is pertinent. So for example, could we look at administrators who had a cert somewhere, they started their career as teachers. Let's say I was a high school, high school social studies teacher, did great there, then became an admin, and I'm an elementary principal now for a couple years. A situation like that, let's say I'm going to retire soon, but I want to be certified in elementary teaching now. I have been doing observations for several years successfully of my building that I'm leading. I'd love to look at pathways for that, because there are people that would do that, and that still is a barrier to try to get cross-endorsed, even though you are the supervisor for the content area. It's just a bizarre situation.
Yeah. So I think we've done more work. That's why I was asking about under sort of like which licensure, and Jen, I think maybe you wanted to chime in on this question. I'm not sure about the board's authority, more generally speaking, around administrators. That's something we could look into if it's helpful, Jen. But
Sure.
But,
One of the conversations that we had very early on was, are we responsible for all certification educator prep? And there was a conversation around that, yes, because it doesn't say that we aren't, therefore the expectation is we are. However, the work of the council was to modernize and set up pathways before the board was established, specific to educators coming in because of the shortage. I think that whatever we build for that will lend to whatever we might look at for administrators or retirees or what have you, as we do that work. But the primary focus from the council last year was not around administrators. It was really around the concerns over retention and recruitment of diverse workforce for education. I'm sorry, the AC unit is right next to me, so if it's too loud, my apologies. So I think that we will definitely have an opportunity to get to that, but I think we need to kind of lay the foundation at that. I think Rebecca had read it earlier of that retention and recruitment and retention of it. And I think it says there is established, the board shall be responsible for modernizing and aligning educator preparation certification to ensure the policies are optimized to attract and retain effective and diverse professionals for employment in the state's public schools. So I think we're starting off with our core groupings, like the ed prep programs, the certification programs, that reimagining. And then based off of that work, we would then start, filtering into, the other opportunities of educators. It was my understanding from the work in the council as well as the board.
Yeah, I would agree that the attract but retain is part of like the administrator licensure and certification. And so thinking about entry as the attracting and potentially re-entry for those who are retired, mid-career is the retention piece. And so I do think that we should be visioning this like at the same time and not kind of wait until like we're done with entry, but we've got to get retention at the same time. However, I also recognize that hasn't been, I hear what you're saying, Liz, this hasn't been an ask us April. So like having that type of data around the mid-career changes and like and kind of flexible and like supportive pathways in licensure for administration changes or any other type of mid-career changes, you're not going to have data for that by the next meeting. And so to even be able to share with us like a like then we won't expect that for then, but let's have the conversation if possible about like well what are the questions that we should be asking, or if you can even pull just like even like a little like a highlighted thing that you did today where like here's the things that we might have on that particular mid-career transition point would be helpful.
Okay, yeah, I think, and to be clear, so to go back to Cynthia, the second chimed in example, what our research to date on the state has been focused on is essentially sort of like how people enact the responsibilities of what you're doing with a teacher licensure, which so an admin who wants to teach is a different is sort of like in the world we've been focused on. How you be a school principal is like a different, or how you be a superintendent is a different body of law that we have not gone into, and we can start that investigation. I would say a third distinction, just based on what you just said, Rebecca, that has come up a bunch in our work and is a retention focus is what are various ways of structuring the educator or teaching profession to allow for varying levels of leadership and authority, which is also different from admin licensure, I just want to say, in a lot of places. It's not that those things don't overlap, but we have done a bunch of work on that too. So we can bring that when it crosses into the like nuts and bolts of how you become an admin in Connecticut. I just wanted to be clear that like it takes a while to distill these complicated bodies of law, and I don't think in a month we can like do all this stuff around educators and like help make clear exactly how all the body of law around admin prep and licensure works, because that's like a whole another set of research.
And I'll just add that we did a lot of work around career I mean, part of the retention strategy is around career ladders and people seeing where the career can take them long term so that they see that potential and get excited and want to, you know, do the upfront work to see the long-term payout. And we were doing a lot when the regs were revisited in 2010, there was a whole mezzanine level certification that was for teacher leadership so that people didn't feel the need to go get their 092 and leave the classroom, but still got credit for being a leader and advancing and moving to like a mentor role or, you know, kind of a more professional, like whatever you want to call it. And all of that was drafted, like the teacher leader endorsement was already thought of and drafted, and then it died in the process of whatever happened at that time with an attempt to revise the regs. So I'm wondering if like that's the kind of that, if we're pulling back and looking at the full continuum of experiences that someone could have in entering this profession and staying in this profession, like at a very high level, what would we want that to look like? And then how do we learn from other professions that have good retention rates, knowing that it's hard to keep anybody in the same profession anywhere right now because people move around a lot. But I think there's things to learn about those ladders and paths that we want to create. And CPRL actually did a lot of work on this in 2014 when you did the diversifying the educator profession pipeline work. There was a whole bunch of career laddering like best practices in the slide deck that I could probably find somewhere if you guys don't.
I have that. I can probably pull that from our files, but yeah, we also have some of that, like I said, from this idea of like, what are various ways to recognize educators' leadership has
Yeah.
been, which I just wanted to be that I'm talking about that sort of separate from the technical body of law, in Connecticut. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're going to be gathering a lot of information about the educator part of it. And it sounded like from what you had said earlier, to kind of hit on what Shannon was talking about, there is some research that you have that talks about that latter work, right? In addition to that, I'm wondering, Shannon, if we could find that document, that work that was done that you said kind of like died, where would we find that for us to kind of even maybe review as part of that? If the work has already been done, though it might need to be updated, there might be some legs in there that have already been completed that we could probably review.
Yeah, I think it was still probably victim to being anchored to the existing structure of regs and very heavy-handed. But it predated me at the department, so I don't even know who would have that draft language. It may be on the website. Like I have this vague memory that at some point the draft version of what would have been the regs in 2010 like lives out there somewhere, or you could ask Julianne or somebody at the Department of Ed and they could probably get it for you. And just to like unearth a little bit of what the flavor or the spirit was, but I don't think we would necessarily want to follow it like verbatim, but yeah.
No, absolutely not. But Karen, could you actually get in contact with somebody there and see if they can unearth that 2010-ish document that Shannon's talking about?
Yes. Yes, I can do that. Mhm.
All right, thank you.
For the sake of time and knowing that this work is never complete and there's always some more to discuss, I'm going to move us forward into, you already got a long list, CPRL, so I'll leave it as it is. And we are not expecting anything around the administrative license transitions yet, beyond like maybe one slide with, here's what we've got. This is what we dug out of the woodworks over the last few weeks. I do want to make sure before our time ends to get feedback on thought exchange questions. And so Jen and I have been looking at what question do we want to add to this kind of a larger thought exchange or a survey that's going to go out to all the to all the board members. And so we broke down our ad hoc ones and I'm going to put them in the chat and I will read them out loud. Cynthia, for you, if I know you're switching between a lot of things and it might not come in your main language. So
thank you.
all right. So the first one, we have 4 questions we would like to ask the board members. The first one's on modernizing pathway focus. What should the ideal set of pathways look like to prepare and license effective, diverse K-12 educators in the state of Connecticut? Or I should actually probably switch that to birth to 12 because we talk ECE in this. Retention focus. What policies, pathways, and supports are most effective in retaining a diverse and effective educator workforce in Connecticut public schools? A systems design focus. How can Connecticut's educator preparation and certification system be designed to be efficient, responsive, and sustainable in meeting evolving workforce and student needs? And the fourth one's on aligning and optimizing pathways focus. How can Connecticut's educator preparation and certification system be designed to remain flexible, responsive, and adaptable to future changes in education, workforce needs, and student populations? What feedback do you have or changes you would recommend as before we put these in the thought exchange for the summer?
Can you share your screen?
Oh, yes, they didn't come up in the chat, I guess. Hold on.
Oh, they're in the chat. I'll just look at it.
Put them in the chat. Do you see them there?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Did you, Rebecca, did you have the words besides modernizing, did you have diversifying?
I do have diverse, let's see, I have diverse educators in the first one. Yep, I do.
Okay. I wonder if we can align some of the language to the State Board of Ed's goals, which are, gosh, I'm trying to think of the exact language, but it's the spaceship, which is a little bit like aiming towards the future. Oh, God, I see it all the time and I can't think of it right now. everything on bouncy, but you know what I'm talking about? The state schools, and they had the rocket ship, and it was into the future.
Cool.
Something. So besides modernizing, I think you're saying, besides modernizing the tight kind of red tape, if you will, and allowing more flexibility and freedom, the purpose of doing that is to not just have, no systems, but to actually align to the needs of the future and the future workforce and college programs, if we could somehow tie that in.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you said that. When Jen and I were talking about this a little bit in terms of what the legislation says, and like we are to be modernizing and aligning educator preparation and certification to ensure that policies are optimized to attract and retain. And I'm really leaning into the wording of the legislation to provide us some guardrails on what we are being tasked to do at the current moment. So yes, I love the metaphor of rocket ships, and I think that would be like beautiful to put on the like larger survey as we're thinking about this. But I think as long as we stay within the guardrails of what the legislation is telling us, it'll help us move the work forward.
What about professionalized?
Oh, I think that's I was like in our conversation earlier, it's like, what does it mean to professionalize? And it doesn't say it in the legislation, so I'm there to move it out there. What are other
Yeah,
folks' thoughts on professionalizing?
The closest it says is diverse professionals for employment in state public schools on section 10 of it. So there's established education board shall be responsible for modernizing, aligning educator preparation and certification to ensure that policies are optimized to attract and retain effective and diverse professionals. So I guess that word professionals, like we fall under professionals, we're just a category of professionals. So I think it's kind of worked into what our statements are there.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon, do you see anything that you're...
No, I think these are pretty comprehensive. I always struggle with the word effective. I do feel like I don't know if everybody has the same like definition there, but and it's used a lot, like in the second one it's twice.
What is interesting is like you can answer these very good, well-written questions two different ways if you were stuck in the old regulations or if you had no regulations and were rebuilding.
Yep.
So as part of the thought exchange, we're going to include the vision that Rebecca had shared earlier to kind of set the lens for these particular questions and help people kind of focus in on kind of the work of the group. So I will have that preface at the beginning of the 3 questions to help with that. Sipo, do you guys, Liz or Tom, do you guys have any thoughts on those 4 questions? Any way to optimize them, from your experience in doing these thought exchanges with the council last year?
Jen, I feel like I should know the answer to this question, but is it just the council members who are responding, or is it like last year when they're going to be sent out to others?
No, it's just going to be the board.
Just the board. Okay. We have a lot of feedback already from last year when we sent it out to like the world.
Yeah. So. Totally. The feedback might be different if we were talking about sending it out to the world.
Just to the board.
Yeah.
I do think we should put maybe in the purpose statement, instead of I say reimagine what modern, it's like reimagine without any regulate, like you want to be very specific about not thinking about our current regulations, like get our minds out of the current regulations. If those did not exist, what would this look like? So I'll try to play around with that.
Does the wording that CPRL used in their presentation, is that similar to your wording, or is it slightly different? Is one more helpful to what you're talking about?
Yeah, maybe I need the link to that presentation, but if you
I shared it with you a little while ago.
Yeah, I want to take and use some of this language about what the education profession of today and the future should look like. So I want to play around with that line and see how I can put that into the statement.
I guess the only feedback, because I would offer is like, I don't know if you want to take another look at these and make sure it's clear how each of the questions is different from one another. Because depending on how people think about it, they might not be sure like what is unique and therefore what they should be answering. Like the first one is called pathway focus. And the last one is also called pathway focus. And then the third one is system design, that talks about how the system should design so it's efficient, evolving, et cetera. And the last one is about how the system should be designed to be flexible to changes and stuff. And I'm sure there's I'm sure there are particular things you're trying to learn in each one of them. And in my experience, these are like such carefully crafted questions, and people answering questions don't spend as much time reading them as the people crafting them. And so I like trying to make the lines as bright as possible between what what you're trying to learn in each of them, I think like could be helpful to make sure that you get like all four things answered.
That is super helpful.
Just because people are going to go fast, I guess is what I'm saying.
We're going to go fast, and I think we can get these down to 3. Because we want to know what people think are the ideal pathways to enter. We want to know what are the policies and pathways and supports for retention. And then if there's like the design piece, like I think 3 and 4 actually can be combined into one question. What are other people's thoughts?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I just ran it through really quickly, and with the idea of possibly merging them down to 3 and making them more concise. What about for pathways in preparation? And I wish I could type into this, but I don't have access to the chat, so I'm apologizing that I'm reading it instead of typing it in for you. What about for pathways and preparation? What should Connecticut educator preparation and licensure pathways look like to effectively and equitably prepare a diverse K-12 workforce? To retention and support, what policies and supports best retain effective, diverse educator in Connecticut public schools? And then system design and responsiveness. How can Connecticut educator preparation and certification systems be designed to be efficient, sustainable, and responsive to evolving educator workforce needs? I mean, they're like 1 or 2 lines each, which might focus people in, which what Liz was talking about.
Yeah.
Rebecca, if you give me editing rights, I can copy and paste them into that document that you have, and then you can share them in the chat really quickly. For the document that you had shared with me.
Yeah, just for the sake of time, just put them in the chat. I will update them, and then can I just send them? Oh, not the chat. I'm sorry. Put them in the document. Put them in the document. You have editing access now. And I can send out an updated version to the ad hoc just to get some last minute feedback before your thought exchange goes out. I do want to make sure, like thinking within our last 10 minutes here, I want to make sure that we have some agreement along when we want to meet next. And so if this time, or does this time work? Could you all meet at this time in 2 weeks? If you look at
Would
your
that
calendar.
give people enough time to organize the materials that they're talking about?
Is that July 7th?
That's not a good week.
Because our whole team is going to be off for the end of the week of July 4th. And many of us will be, myself included, will be out on July 7th. So selfishly, just because of that holiday, if we could add a week.
Great. July 14th.
I can do the 14th. I will be joining remotely though, because I will be out of the area.
Yes. I prefer remote.
So I'll just, yeah, okay. Just want to make sure. So I can do the 14th if that works for everybody else.
The 14th, and then does that 4 o'clock work for, does the 14th work for you, Shannon?
It works for me. I'd love for it to be more in the confines of the traditional workday, if at all possible. Just because I got to get to camp, pick up, and drop off.
So if you want to do it earlier, the earliest I could do with the time change is 10 a.m.
I could do 10 a.m. Cynthia, could you do 10 a.m.?
I'm not sure, but just put it on my calendar and I'll move things around to make it work.
So Karen,
Right.
can you schedule a meeting for July 14th at 10 a.m. for this ad hoc?
Yes. Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Fantastic. So will that be enough time, CEPRL team members? With vacations and things, I'm aware of that, so.
I'm trying to pull
You
up
can
my
always-
calendar. Tong, I
You
don't
can
know. I
always
don't have your
push it
schedule.
up a week if we need to as well.
Yeah, we could push it back to the 21st.
If you're okay with that, I think that might be.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'll be out on the 14th, because I'll be on a plane anyway. So yeah.
So let's go to let's do the 21st at that time, Karen. And then that also, Jen, would give us some, we'll hopefully have some responses to the thought exchange. And so we could use that time also just to analyze some of that data that we're bringing in from the thought exchange.
So what I'm thinking for the thought exchange, if I could put it all together and send it out this weekend, I
Okay.
would request that everybody finish it by the 11th, which would give about a week. And
Great.
then once we have that raw data, we can share it with this group for review and discussion in advance of the 21st. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll put the July 11th as the deadline then.
Okay. So next steps, I'm gonna send over, Jen, you and I will align on the questions, and then we'll send those to you, Shannon, Cynthia, and then Anne, and then those updated questions will get put into the thought exchange. That'll go out. We'll have our next meeting on the 21st. Karen, you're gonna set up all the meeting sequences and all the information and invites. And then CEPRL, you got your list of deliverables to bring to that space in that meeting. Anything I'm missing, folks?
No, Karen, we usually have to approve the minutes at the beginning of the next meeting, but could
Okay.
Rebecca and I get the draft minutes as soon as they're done? So that way, if there's anything in there that we have to kind of follow up on, we can do that and review them before that.
Of course.
Great.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, what do I have to do to close this with Robert rules again?
I will cater a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay,
You don't have like a hammer or something?
I know.
Maybe that's
I
my
have
one gift
chimes.
to
You call
myself.
them hammers. I should. Gavel. It's a gavel.
Gavel.
The gavel, the gavel.
And I will second that.
right.
All in favor?
All in favor? All right.
All right.
Happy holidays, folks. More to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Good to
All
see
right,
you.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.